Hey, yo, Sox fans. It's your boy, NWI Steve here, and Bez Beyond the Pen here
That's
for
me.
another live edition of the Sox On Tap post-game show. Sunday Fun Day edition, baby. We're going to be talking about the White Sox and their impressive 6-1 road trip against Central Division rivals here. It was a week of division dominance, something we have not seen in ages, it feels like. There's a lot of things to kind of unpack from this week of quality White Sox baseball. But before we get into all that, make sure you are going to ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports literature and podcast needs. That's where you can read things like our guy Bez, his daily post-game write-up shows or write-up articles talking about, again, the highlights from a 6-1 road trip, all the things to get you juiced up and prepped for the next day's game. And hey, we'll even maybe take a look at what's going to happen as the Sox come home on Tuesday to take on the Tampa Bay Rays here, because they're chasing some things here. There might only be 18 games left in the season, but there's a lot of things at play here tonight. Bez, my man, how we doing?
Doing good, Steven. Like you said, 6-1 against all of these division assholes, beating the Motor City Kitties in Detroit. 2 out of 3 is just beautiful. And the first ever White Sox sweep of the Minnesota Twins, Canada South, was a sight to see. It was a nice week, despite the fact that this is a lost season and another rebuild. It was nice to see that happen. I wish we would have seen some of that in like 2003 and a lot of other seasons I could name. I appreciate you hyping up the recaps a lot there at the beginning. Unfortunately, I haven't had much time. I interviewed and started a new job, so I haven't been writing too much, folks. But I will be back on the beat as soon as I'm able to come up for air in the last couple of weeks of the season here. But life is good, Steven. Life is good.
You touched on something very important there, Bez. The Sox first ever 4-game sweep in Minnesota in 6 decades since those shitbags moved to the Twin Cities from Washington, D.C. Never before has this ever happened. It's truly amazing to think about the fact that years when this team was actually good, they couldn't go up, and they were obviously playing in that House of Horrors, in that inflatable toilet that they called the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome with their stupid ass garbage bags on the outfield walls. They could never pull that off. And this year, in the year of our Lord 2025, that was the first time your Chicago White Sox were able to go and sweep 4 games against the Minnesota Twins. I don't care whether it's a lost season or not. You always love to see it. And because you know what? Because of that, right here, I'm going to have a drink, and I'm going to enjoy the tears of our pal, Theodore, who was really, really taking a lot of copium this week during the course of that 4-game sweep. I know you jumped in on the fun a little bit there at the expense of old Theodore.
Yeah, Theodore had a lot of shit to say this week as he watched the White Sox just trounce his beloved Minnesota Twins. And I, as you know, Anthony and I like to keep you abreast of what's going on White Sox Twitter, and especially when it's at Theodore's expense. I know how much joy and pleasure you derive from things like that. But yeah, Teddy Bear was really running his mouth, and I had to put him in his place, talking about having, not having been relevant in 20 years when we last won a World Series, and owning the worst record of all time and all of these things. But, like I told him, I'm like, you almost got contracted. And if it wasn't for a loophole in the stadium deal, you would have been. And you guys rewarded everybody by having the longest playoff losing streak ever. So go fuck yourself, Ted. Eat shit.
I don't think I could have said it any better, even if I tried. That was just very well done there, my man. So it was truly enjoyable to see. And one of the big overarching themes of this past week was Will's boys don't quit. Come from behind victories just all week long here, as this team was showing that they are playing through the full 27 outs. The offense continues to be productive. They continue to hit the ball over that fencing that gets set up prior to the game, which for me at least makes the games a lot more enjoyable being able to see that. Um, seeing seeing it happen from guys that ultimately are going to be material to this thing going forward. Colson Montgomery continuing to hit home runs at a historic rate for White Sox rookies here. Kyle Teal getting in on the fun with just an epic bat drop in the seventh inning of that game against the shitbags from Canada South earlier on in the week. Edgar Caro even jumping in on the fun. Chase Mydrell. So guys that matter to this thing going forward. And then, I mean, you see, a little noodle boy, doing a couple 2-3 things here and there. And, Antonio, who was, on the mend here right now. That's why, our lovely listeners and people watching on the live stream here on the YouTube, don't have to see our resident Italian, on the episode here this week. But
he's on the IL.
Yeah, he was a little chirpy. I talked to him for a couple minutes earlier today when I was making my drive back from Des Plaines, which I don't know if people know this is Spanish for of the plains. He did not sound too good on the phone there. So you people, you're stuck with us tonight. But hey, we're going to do this and we're going to have a little fun here. So
and we're going to do it live.
Fuck it, we are. That's definitely the truth. Again, I think for me, the highlight of this week was obviously going up and sweeping the Twins right there because, to do something that this franchise has never been able to do in 6 decades since those asswipes moved there really was phenomenal to see. And then you follow that up against a team that is leading and going to win the American League Central Division and going to go to the playoffs, the Detroit Tigers. You go to Motown and you take 2 out of 3 from the Motor City Kitties. Now, the second game of this 3-game set, you did get shut out against Tarek Skubal, who's probably going to win his second consecutive American League Cy Young Award this year. Look, that's going to happen. But we saw this team again continue to fight, continue to come back, play through all 27 outs, and steal 2 victories on the road against a team that is playoff bound. Bez, I mean, what were your thoughts on the 3-game set in Motown this weekend?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You face Tarek Skubal. He's probably going to win the Cy Young again for the second straight year. It's going to come down to the wire between him and our old friend Garrett Crochet. So it's going to be close there, but nevertheless, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball right now. You lost to him, you got shut out to him. It happens. It even happens to good teams. But you hit the nail on the head about playing through. Well, to use a football reference, because I know you're a big, huge football guy. They played through the whistle. They've done this all season. Where in 24. Even in some of 2023 where they were down 3 runs early, they mailed it in. And it was like 2 base runners for the rest of the game and never even came close to scoring. It looked like they were allergic to scoring runs. So this year has been different. Like you said, Willie's boys don't quit. And all of these have been come from behind wins from players that matter. You mentioned all the names. I will throw in there that very quietly, there hasn't been much power there, but Curtis Mead has been hitting the ball a little bit. He's hitting above 290 in the I think since coming over from the White Sox or coming over to the White Sox, or maybe it's been just in August. I don't know. Nevertheless, he's been hitting the ball well. He's driven in some runs. He's hit some doubles. Not a lot of power there, but it looks like he might be something. He's contributing. So I just want to call him out and make sure that we mention him, because I don't know if he's part of the future, but he's here. He's a young cat. He's a former top 100 prospect. Maybe you get something out of this guy.
Yeah, no, very, very good point. They're getting contributions from a variety of different spots up and down the lineup here. And, one guy in particular I want to talk about, and I didn't think we would ever say this today. Lenyn Sosa became the first White Sox player in the year of our Lord 2025 to surpass the 20 home run mark. Bez, did you ever think that we would be saying these words live on the air?
Let me just say, You start from the beginning of the year, and I've had these conversations with you, with Anthony. I wanted nothing to do with Lenyn Sosa going into this year. I was like, why are they bringing this guy back? Why are we still doing this experiment? There's nothing there. He had his fake little September last year where it was like he had like a 500 BABIP or something ridiculous. I'm like, why? And now here we are, and he's the home run leader of the team. At one point, this guy was hitting above 280, like maybe a week ago. I can't believe it. Pleasant surprises are pretty rare around these parts, and he's one of them. And I'll take it. I'll take it. I don't know where he's going to play or what the future looks like for him. If he's a DH because he can't play the field, excuse me, I don't know if there's enough power there for that. But nevertheless, if you can hit 20 home runs, maybe he knocks out a few more here before the end of the year. He's got a spot for 2026 at the very least. So thank you, Lenyn Sosa, and thank you for a White Sox player finally proving me wrong.
So to quote beloved and departed Ed Farmer, he's on the team for next year.
Yes, sir.
I think it is. I think it is pretty fair to say that we will see Lenyn Sosa back on the team next year. You bring up a very interesting point about him and just, where does he kind of fit into this equation? Because defensively, we've talked about this a lot, is he just doesn't have a strong position out there, and he makes too many mental lapses out there on the field, whether he's playing first base, whether he's playing second. We just see it far too often there. And, for a guy that with the 20 home runs, I think the slug is maybe like 435, 436. So it's not, super high in that regard. So
no.
He really is an interesting test case. I mean, but I think that this is somebody that on a decent team, even, this is a back end of the bench type of player here, but for a team that going into 2026 still isn't going to really have expectations coming into this thing, he's putting himself in a position here to be able to kind of move around the diamond a little bit and be able to get at bats with consistency here, because like you said, I mean, he's probably going to end up somewhere maybe 22, 23 homers, when all is said and done here in 2025. And for a guy that, like you, I was pretty much writing him off before the start of the season here, to see that kind of production ultimately is really, I think, a rare kind of developmental win for this team. We don't see a ton of those, especially on the offensive side over the course of the last 2 decades here. So to be able to see that finally happen is pretty positive. And I think that, brings us to another interesting point here is, are we really at a spot now where the Sox offense and some of the younger players in their development cycle are ahead of the pitchers? Because for a long time, and I think especially coming into the season, that was really one of the biggest concerns that everybody had, was that, there just wasn't that development on the offensive side with the positional player group. Particularly, we saw some of the struggles with Colson Montgomery last year in Charlotte, the first, couple weeks of the season here, that ultimately led to him going out to Arizona, working directly with Ryan Fuller, making some swing adjustments and things. But the second half, it's really been talked about a lot, just the fact that this has really been a top 6 to 7 offense in the entire league, hitting the ball consistently out of the ballpark, slugging more frequently, still not taking a ton of walks. That's just not really part of their MO here. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to take the walks, give me the slug. And they're doing that right now. So, my kind of thought process here is, I know I've been a little bit disappointed with the lack of development from the starting pitchers, particularly the young pitchers that we saw coming into the season, the guys like Jonathan Cannon, Sean Burke. We just didn't see them take that step forward that I think a lot of us were hoping would happen here. So are you kind of that same mindset, Naz, that right now on the positional side of things, they seem to be a little bit ahead of where the pitchers were, which definitely wasn't the case coming into the season?
Yeah, I think it's even more than just a little bit. Coming into the season, you had Shane Smith, Burke, Cannon, Martin Perez, and Davis Martin. And in the beginning of the season, the pitching staff was really stellar. And we had that streak of starts where, we were going out there and pitching 6 innings. We weren't giving up any runs. and the starting pitching looked like the strength of the team to begin the year. And then you had Perez go down. Burke and Cannon had their ups and downs. Shane Smith was pretty steady throughout most of the year until he kind of hit a wall about halfway through or a little bit past the halfway point. So it seems like it's flipped, or it has flipped from the beginning of the year where, the offense looked pretty anemic and the pitching looked solid. And now the hitting looks solid and the pitching, still producing and still getting outs, but you see Davis Martin out there running on fumes. You see Shane Smith running on fumes. But the hitting development has, you've got what Miguel Vargas's turnaround, and, I would never go as far as to call him a breakout star or anything absurd like that. He's turned into what looks like a middling hitter. And that's fine compared to what he looked like. Colson Montgomery really struggled last year in the beginning of this year, and now he has 18 homers. We talked a little bit about Curtis Mead. He didn't get a ton of opportunities in Tampa, but he's at least hitting for average. Lenyn Sosa. I really want to just thank the Baltimore Orioles, my Baltimore Orioles, the Bozos, for letting go of Ryan Fuller. And thank you for Chris Getz for picking him up. Thank you, Orioles, for promoting former White Sox legend Cody Ashe to take over for Ryan Fuller. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much, and enjoy trout fishing in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, for a team that was supposed to be the next dynasty here, that's not really working out particularly well. I can't imagine what kind of person would, kind of label them as, a team that's just going to be a shoo-in for the playoffs. That's, the same type of person that would probably call Miguel Vargas a, rising superstar, but I don't know. I don't know what kind of person would have such, really asinine baseball thoughts, but,
I can't even imagine a person like that exists. There's no way someone's that dumb.
Yeah. And surely there's no way that they would let someone like that in charge of molding America's future in the youth of the nation here. Certainly that would never happen.
Oh, God. No, we would be living in a simulation.
Well, I always say, me and Antonio, we talk about it all the time. I think Skynet is becoming self-aware, but, we'll see what happens here. So, a couple things here right now. So this team sits 55-89. 18 games left. Magic number is down to 8. And when I say magic number, if you know, you know. But for those of you who don't, I'm going to spell it out right here. If this team can find a way to win 8 more games, they will avoid their third consecutive 100-loss season. And I think that is something that really should be the goal. And we have seen some of the players talking about it in the clubhouse here, and it seems that they are aware of this, and it's almost kind of helping them to play a little bit of inspired baseball right now. And I think, with what we've seen from this team in the second half, overall, they're 23-25 since the All-Star break here. That's a significant improvement for a team that really just didn't show a lot of signs of life in the first half of the season. To now be at this point, over the course of an almost 50-game stretch, playing close to 500 ball, that is a marked improvement over what I think most of us anticipated happening here coming into the season. So, Bez, 18 games left. The schedule's not really going to do them a ton of favors the rest of the way here. Do you think they can find a way to eke out these 8 wins that are needed?
When you look at what has to happen, you've got 6 3-game series left, and you've got to win 3 of them outright, and you got to take 1 out of 3 in the other 3. When I break it down to myself that way, it seems very doable. You've got the Washington Nationals as where they wrap up the season. The Tampa Bay Rays, although they've been playing better of late, they just lost 3 in a row to the Cleveland Guardians. The Guardians have had our number all year and seemingly like for half of a decade. So we've got 3 against them, but they're a 500 baseball team. The Padres, not playing great baseball.
And your Bozos coming in. in a couple of weeks.
And my bozos coming in, who are just won a game that made sure they avoided 100 losses, which is amazing for a potential dynasty. So when you look at it that way, it seems really doable with the way that they're hitting the ball. It seems very doable. It's going to be close. I really think it's going to come down to the wire. I can't even believe that we're talking about this. If you told me that we'd be talking about this at the end of the season, prior to the start of the season, I would have said you're absolutely nuts. When I saw Baseball Prospectus's projection that they had the White Sox winning 60 games, I thought, no freaking way. In our preseason show, I decided to go with the Homer projection and pick and said that they'd win 58 games. And you and Anthony shook your heads and were like, I'm like, listen, it was a Homer pick. And it's crazy to think that they're going to probably surpass that mark. So there's definitely a path there. There's a path to avoiding 100 losses. And even if they do, for those prospect people and prospect gurus and tankathon folks out there, they'll still have the inside track to getting the number one pick, because the Nationals and the Rockies cannot pick in the top three. So they're automatically eliminated, and we still have a lead. I'm not sure that's the right way to phrase it, but we're still ahead of the Pirates and the Twinkies. So 63 and 99 and avoiding that 100 loss mark finally seems like forever. And having the number one pick, I don't know that you could have asked for a better outcome to the 2025 season than avoiding 100 losses and still potentially having the best shot of the number one pick. So it's there. It's there, and these guys are still playing hard and hitting the ball. So it's given us all a reason to watch through the end of the season.
Yeah, you hit on a couple of key points right there. Obviously being in a position to have the lottery, kind of break their way and have them get the number one overall pick. Now that would be, a slight consolation for not being able to pick higher than 10th this past June during what we all went through during the course of the 2024 season. So I feel like the baseball gods kind of owe us one. They really kind of need to throw us a bone. And if this team is able to find a way to go 8-10 in these remaining 18 games, at worst 8-10. I mean, listen, if you want to go 10-8, I'm cool with that. Again, schedule's not going to do them a ton of favors here, but they've been going out there and they've been winning games against playoff-bound teams in the second half here. So fuck it, why not? And I think to your point, if you would have said before the season that this team was going to be in a position to avoid losing 100 games, I know I would have said you're fucking out of your mind. I think on the preseason show, I think I had them at 47 wins. So I had them at a 6-win improvement. They've already blown past that. The funny thing is they're Pythagorean right now. Actually already has them at 64 wins. So they've had a little bit of bad luck in there. Now, I do take a little bit of an issue with some of the Pythagorean projections that happen here from time to time because, look, you go back to last homestand, that final game against the Twins when you win 8-0, and then you have a 7-0 blowout against the Royals, the first game of that series. So you have two games where you outscore your opponents by a total of 15 runs. That is going to kind of inflate that number there a little bit. But I think when you look at some of the run differential numbers, there's actually 3 other teams in the American League that have worse run differentials than the Sox do. Which, again, would anybody have anticipated that coming into the season? I don't think so. And given the inconsistencies that we've seen from the starting pitching staff in particular this year, I'd say that is a significant improvement for this team here. So I know I am actually out here watching these games hoping that they're going to find a way to get at least 8 more wins because I don't want the stink of another 100-loss season heading into this winter. And I think it would also really help to kind of lift the spirits of the fan base overall to kind of avoid that. Now, look, 99 losses is still a shit ton of losses, but it's a lot better than having a third consecutive 100-loss season for the first time in franchise history here. So I think we're all kind of collectively watching this. I don't know if maybe some of the people last year that were hoping for them to break the all-time record are watching this, still hoping for them to lose. I don't know. Is that still a thing on X, Bez, where people talk about not watching the Sox or wanting them to lose?
No. Everybody wants them to win now. Everybody, people who were, kind of quiet over the last 2 years are tweeting more, and fun bad is a term that's been thrown around. I don't know if you know that or not, because you're not
Big
on
if true.
X. Big if true. But they have been fun bad in the second half of the season. When people were saying fun bad when they were playing good for a week in May, that wasn't really not a thing. People aren't rooting for wins or rooting for losses. But I do take issue. Now, you did say, lift the spirits of the fan base. And I feel like the spirits have been lifted a little too high, because you have people saying, like, all you need is like one power hitter and a couple of relievers, and this team could make a playoff push as a third wild card. There's stuff like that, a lot of hopefulness going on. So people can do what they want. I'm not telling you how to fan. I think you're getting a little carried away if you feel that way, but do you. Nevertheless, going into next year, not having 100 losses, getting a little momentum and a little positivity will be nice to see at the ballpark. Maybe we'll sell out opening day again. Who knows?
Yeah, that will be an interesting thing to monitor. I know I'm excited to get back to the ballpark here. I do have to make a trip up to lovely Appleton, Wisconsin, for some business on Tuesday, and I'm going to break some news here live on the air. There are not a ton of apples out there. It's what we like to call in the business a false advertisement. So my hope is that they'll be able to get down maybe for the game on Wednesday evening or even possibly Thursday afternoon with the 1:10 start. Would definitely like to catch one of the games of this series here before they get on the road and go to that shithole that is the Mistake by the Lake in Cleveland, Ohio, next weekend here. So definitely hoping to be able to do that. But, just the idea of being back in the ballpark, it's been a lot more palatable here in the second half. Going out there and actually watching this team live in person, with the exception of, kind of those two games that I went to in the Yankees series where they kind of got their brains beat in, but that's to be expected. There
was the game you and I went to against the LaGuardians, where they gave up 5 in the first inning, but Aaron Savali is no longer with us, and they mounted a little bit of a comeback, so they didn't, just mail it in. But I will try to be there on Tuesday. I will probably actually be there on Tuesday night. Probably, it's a good chance that's probably my last game of the year. But
okay. Well, then in that case, if you do that, you're going to have to find a way to secure a W there. So, what you were talking about earlier here was some of the maybe hyperbolic optimism that might be going on the interwebs here. Our good friend Matt here says, all you need is 2 genuine superstar position players, 2 top of the rotation stars, and 5 to 6 relievers to compete on paper for a World Series, aka like $500 million spent. I mean, when you break it down like that, it is pretty simple, actually.
Yeah. If you're willing to spend $500 million, Jerry, I know you're not. I know you probably don't even have it because, supposedly this new partner of yours is here to pay down debt and operational costs. So if he's not willing to spend $500 million, then it's not going to happen. The bullpen, I will say that some of these guys have been better of late. Jordan Leisure has been better of late. So that's nice to see. Him kind of turn his season around and have go on a little bit of a heater here is a nice change of pace.
Yeah, I think having a reliable reliever or two in the bullpen is something that kind of should be a priority over the course of this winter here. I know there was a lot of talk during the course of Rebuild 2.0 about the resource allocation being too heavy towards the bullpen. And, there is obviously a fine line here between overspending on the bullpen, but also coming to the realization that you're going to have to go out there and you're going to have to find some guys to fill in roles like that in the back end of your bullpen here if you do want to be successful here. So it will definitely be interesting to see if they are able to do that over the course of this winter here. Maybe provide just a little bit of stability to the back end of that bullpen there. So that definitely will be fascinating to watch and see how all of that unfolds. But, one guy in that bullpen that has really been, I think, a bright spot to this point has been Winkelman Gonzalez, the guy that was really the fourth piece of the Garrett Crochet deal from the Ginger Sox over the course of the winter here. He continues to throw the ball really well. The stuff isn't super overpowering. He's, 93 to 95 on the fastball, which is really just average at this point here. But the one thing that he's been doing is he's been commanding the strike zone significantly better than what has been his track record during his time in pro ball. So that's always going to kind of be the key with him going forward here is he going to throw enough strikes to be able to utilize that slider, which when he's got a really good feel for it, that thing has really good downward bite on it, and it can be a solid put away pitch. I mean, he went out there yesterday, and granted, yes, it was in mop-up time, did strike out 5 out of the 6 hitters that he faced. So, this is one of the things that, with some of these young guys coming up here to close out this season and even going into next season is seeing, who's going to emerge and who could potentially position themselves to be part of this thing in the future when it does matter. And, for some of the guys in the starting rotation that aren't getting the job done, someone like a Jonathan Cannon who was given a lot of rope early on in the season and just can't seem to get his footing underneath him. Is he going to have to kind of reinvent himself over the course of the winter here and maybe have to transition into a bullpen role? We've seen this happen with a lot of guys, a lot of failed starting pitchers in recent memory. And I don't think that's a bad thing if you have somebody that ultimately just isn't getting the job done in the starting rotation, trying to move them over to the bullpen, see if you can salvage something out of them. So it kind of makes me wonder, could Brian Bannister, Ethan Katz, and the rest of the pitching development team maybe look to do something like that with Jonathan Cannon over the course of this winter? What are your thoughts, Bez?
I don't know. I mean, he came in, they got called up recently and pitched in relief, and it was ugly. I was hoping that, going into that game, I'm like, okay, maybe this is the role for him. He's a spot starter, the guy that you can call up or keep in the pen in mop-up duty, long relief, the swing man, if you will. And it was ugly. It didn't look good. He couldn't throw strikes. So I don't know what you do with a lot of these guys who don't have, like you said, overpowering stuff and overpowering fastball, because that is the stuff that makes up for the walks. So I don't know. I mean, to me, Jonathan Cannon's in AAA, Sean Burke's in AAA, and that was our opening day starter. 2 of your 5 guys from your opening day starting rotation are in AAA. It's hard to call that anything else but a failure. I don't know what they can figure out for those guys. Hopefully they can figure out something, but you're not going to all of a sudden start throwing 95, 96 consistently. They are what they are. Usually failed starters become relievers, and maybe they can salvage themselves into that. That's kind of how I definitely feel about Cannon. I still have a little bit of hope for Sean Burke, just because you've seen the stuff that he has. He's been able to tick up his strikeout rate. He has some stuff when he's on that can miss bats, and that's really what this rotation is missing, is rotation and bullpen too, really, is guys who can go out there and fan 3 hitters when they come in, or 2, whatever it is, because that is what keeps guys off the bases and pitches over walks. That's what you need, is strikeouts, and we don't have many guys like that. So I don't know. I mean, like you said, the hitting is ahead of the pitching at this point. Going into next year, you have Shane Smith and Davis Martin, and then 3 question marks.
I think that's pretty accurate here, at least from my perspective. The one of the positive things that I think we've seen in the first 2 years of Chris Gett's tenure, between him and the new pitching hierarchy with Brian Bannister and Ethan Katz and some of the other members of the organization here, is we've seen them kind of go on the scrap heap, find some veteran, kind of journeyman free agent types, and get utility out of them. We saw that a year ago with Eric Fetty. We've seen it this year with Adrian Hauser. We've seen it with Martin Perez. This could be an area where this team maybe has something figured out a little bit. Now, again, ultimately, that's not the type of move that's going to move the needle significantly. It's not going to, catapult this team from a 63 win to, a 72 win team. But, there is value in that, and having somebody that you can count on to give you quality innings here. So, perhaps that's another area that they're going to look to supplement the rotation over the course of this winter. And I was thinking about this earlier today. One guy that maybe would fit that mold. I don't know if he would be willing to, but Jose Quintana. That would be, in my opinion, I think that's a move that would make a lot of sense for this team over the course of this winter. It's not going to break the bank for you here.
Nope.
Somebody that the organization knows from his time here last decade. And again, he's a veteran. He's been through a lot of things throughout the course of his time in the major leagues, and he's still getting people out. He's 90 miles up north here with the Milwaukee Brewers, and there's a good chance he's going to start a playoff game for them this year. So that's somebody that, I know I kind of have my eye on a little bit here. So we'll see if that's maybe a direction that this team goes here over the course of winter. But Bez, is there anybody in kind of that veteran mold that you think that this team could, really target over the course of this winter to help round out that rotation that is needed, as you mentioned earlier?
That was the same guy that I've had my eye on. If you're going to go for a veteran, was Quintana. Obviously the familiarity, and I just like the guy. I was a fan of his when he was here. He's still a solid pitcher at his advanced age, and the White Sox love ex-Milwaukee Brewers, so it seems like a match made in heaven. Like you said, you can get him for a 1-year deal. The thing is, he seems like a guy who probably wants to pitch for a contender, and a contender would want him. I think the Brewers signed him pretty late in free agency last year for that reason. He was probably holding out for a contender to sign him, and that happened. And probably isn't a guy that wants to, get traded midseason. I would love it if they brought back Quintana, because when I look at the other options out there, I see like Merrill Kelly, who's like 37. I don't know, Shane Bieber. I don't know. Just none of the names that I see on the list of free agents that would fall into the White Sox, wheelhouse of finances would make sense. Quintana would be my number one option there. I wouldn't mind Merrill Kelly. I guess that would be my second option. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of pitchers to get excited about. Martin Perez has a mutual option for $10 million. Mutual options are very rarely ever, exercised. I'm sure he would love the $10 million because, he didn't pitch very much this year, but I wish he did, because he's been pretty solid in the, 45 innings that he's given us. I don't know that the White Sox pick up the $10 million. I know that they have nothing on the payroll next year, but $10 million for a veteran who missed most of the season doesn't seem like a move the White Sox typically do. I wouldn't mind it one bit, because it's not my money, and I don't care about the Reinsdorf family trust. But yeah, I don't see that happening. Otherwise, Jose Quintana all day. Merrill Kelly would be okay. I would be okay with Martin Perez, but they definitely need that guy. They definitely need somebody who can anchor that rotation, because there's 3 question marks in the rotation after Davis Martin and Shane Smith. And then you've got a couple of prospects who took a step back this year. It is what it is. I'm not giving up on those guys, so everybody calm down and don't get mad at me for saying that they took a step back. And then you've got some guys that are coming off of Tommy John and who are a little bit further behind, the guys in AAA. And that's your best bet.
Yeah, I think you make some solid points right there. Maybe another guy to consider a little bit, even though he's having a very down year with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Zach Gallen, guy that's been a solid pitcher at various points in his career, but really not throwing the ball well this year. So, maybe they see that as this year's type of, or this winter's, Adrian Hauser, Eric Fetty reclamation project from a veteran guy to then go and flip at the deadline. So that, could be an interesting name possibly to keep an eye on there. So, but we'll have several months to kind of dig into that here as we've got 18 games left here in the regular seasons. Pretty wild to think that here we sit on September the 7th. We are winding down here, and it's going to be over here before we know it. So let's take a look here now at what we got on tap ahead of us this week. We got a 3-game set with the Tampa Bay Rays, who are desperately trying to cling to any contention hopes for the third wild card spot. Just lost 3 out of 4 games to the Cleveland Guardians at home this past week. That really is going to kind of put them behind the 8 ball a little bit. And the Sox have a chance to really kind of put the dagger in the heart of the Tampa Bay Rays this week. They won 2 out of 3 games, coming immediately off of the All-Star break back in July, playing at Steinbrenner Field down in Tampa. Would be really nice to see this team get 2 out of 3 at least again here at home and kind of put that team to bed in the 2025 season. So the Rays have not announced any of their starters for the 3-game set. So for the Sox, however, on Tuesday, we're going to get Yoendrys Gomez. Sox have TBD as well on Wednesday, and then we're going to get Shane Smith for the 1:10 matinee start on Thursday here. So Bez, 3-game set against a team fighting for their playoff lives here. How do you think this series is going to go?
I'm going to get crazy, and I'm going to say the White Sox are going to take 2 out of 3. And one reason why is because, and I don't know if this hasn't been announced, then they're just making this up, but ESPN.com has Adrian Hauser, White Sox legend, going up against Yoendrys Gomez on Tuesday. So if you haven't seen Adrian Hauser, he's been bad since going over to Tampa. So maybe we can tee off on our old friend there. Yoendrys Gomez, again, another guy, I don't know if he's got any future here or not. I'm sure he'll be in spring training competing for a spot somewhere. But he's been somewhat reliable. He's given 5 innings every time he goes out, run or 2. So if this team continues to hit, and like you said, we played them pretty tough last time, I think we can get 2 out of 3 here, especially with Shane Smith pitching in a couple of days if he's got his best stuff.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how Shane Smith bounces back after that nasty collision he had with Kyle Teal in the series opener in Detroit. On just one of the weirdest plays you're ever going to see on a baseball field.
Very weird.
He was able to stay out there during the course of that game there. So, hopefully there's not any kind of residual soreness that's going to have a significant impact on him this coming Thursday. But like you, I think they're going to find a way to win this series. I think they're going to get 2 out of 3 here, and that's going to cut that magic number down to 6. So let's just keep finding ways to win baseball games here. I'm not going to see much of the game on Tuesday night as I will be up in Lovely, as I mentioned earlier, up in lovely Appleton, Wisconsin there. But I will be monitoring for progress, as we like to say in the business here. So, Baz, hopefully you're going to bring the positive vibes in person there next week. So, I think it would definitely be a good thing to see this team find a way, win a series at home. They've played really well at home this year. I think they're 30 and 43 at home to this point. So a market improvement over what we saw a year ago. And they really have played, I would say, significantly better at home over the last couple 2-3 months. So, looking to see that continue here, and let's get another series dub. Let's keep the positive momentum going here a little bit. So, Bez, that's going to wrap us up here. I think we covered a lot here. Really positive 6-1 week for the Sox against division rivals from Minnesota and Detroit. Any final thoughts?
I really hope we can avoid this 100-loss season. It's hard to celebrate it. It's kind of sad that that's what we're rooting for, but that's where we are, and it is what it is. It was absolutely beautiful this week, kicking the shit out of the Minnesota Twins and the who was the other team? The Detroit Tigers. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. And beating them on their place too. So phenomenal week, White Sox. Keep up the good work. Let's take 2 out of 3 against the Rays, against the Guardians, and then we're in pretty good position there to take this down. And again, it's hard to celebrate. It's hard to celebrate it, but I want it. Steve, is that a bad thing? Is that a bad thing that I want it?
It is not a bad thing, and I'm going to echo those sentiments here. Find a way. Find a way to win at least 8 more ball games. It's not going to be easy, but this team has shown a lot of life here in the second half. And like you, I want to see them find a way to get that minimum 8 wins to avoid that 100 losses. And again, it was just outstanding. It warmed my heart to see this team go out there and sweep 4 games against those shitbags from Canada South, and to drink old Theodore's tears as he was crying like the little bitch that he is on the interwebs, as you guys were sharing that in the group text right there. So I always enjoy seeing Theodore cry at the hands of our Chicago White Sox. So that was definitely the highlight of this week here. So let's keep the positive momentum going here. So that's going to wrap us up here for the Sox on Tap postgame show, Sunday Funday edition. But be sure, folks, if you're out there, be sure to go to ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. Periodically, on occasion, I will even still write articles once in a while when my travels aren't taking me to, some of these little podunk places all across the Midwest. But, it is a little bit of a challenge here and there, admittedly. But, I'm going to try to sprinkle in a little bit more content here as we wrap up the season here. I know Bez continues to do a great job with the post-game write-ups and recaps. Like me, had some professional challenges going on here over the last couple of weeks here that's kind of hindered production a little bit here, but hey, we're still out there, we're still putting out the content here, and you may see some things here in the coming days. So folks, be sure to go to ontapsportsnet.com for all Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. That's going to do it for us here live on the Sox on Tap Sunday Funday post-game show. Let's shut it down as we always do. Bez, take it away, my man.
White Sox forever.
White Sox for life.